Most people assume toxic workplaces damage careers through obvious mechanisms like stalled promotions, lower salaries, or the occasional resignation letter typed with shaking hands late at night. In reality, the deeper damage happens much earlier and much more quietly. It begins the moment you start questioning your own reactions, when a perfectly reasonable response to unreasonable behavior gets reframed as oversensitivity, when you begin carrying stress home like an unpaid second job, and when the boundaries between who you are and where you work start dissolving. Toxicity is rarely dramatic at first. It is gradual, cumulative, and deeply persuasive. That is precisely why surviving it requires more than resilience. It requires strategy. The first layer is protection, and it often feels counterintuitive because many people have been conditioned to believe that self-protection is selfish. In healthy environments, cooperation is rewarded, but in unhealthy ones, overexposure becomes a liability. A toxic culture often operates by making you internalize external dysfunction. The missed deadlines, the unpredictable criticism, the public humiliation, the endless moving targets, all of it begins to feel like evidence of your inadequacy. It is not. Emotional boundaries are your first line of defense. When someone projects their instability onto you, your task is not to absorb it but to recognize it. Their behavior is information about them, not a verdict about you. This is where identity anchoring becomes essential. You must maintain a vivid understanding of yourself outside the office, your competence, your values, your relationships, and the parts of your life that existed long before this particular job entered the picture. Daily decompression rituals matter more than they seem. A short walk, a workout, a quiet drive without notifications, these are not luxuries. They are psychological airlocks that prevent workplace stress from contaminating the rest of your life. The second layer is strategic navigation. One of the most expensive mistakes people make is believing they can single-handedly repair a broken culture. It is an admirable instinct, but it usually ends the same way, with exhaustion, disappointment, and an eventual exit that comes later than it should have. Systems tend to protect themselves, especially dysfunctional ones. Your role is not to save the organization. Your role is to move through it intelligently while preserving your options. Documentation becomes invaluable here. Dates, conversations, witnesses, emails. These details create clarity when memory becomes clouded by stress. They also provide protection should the situation escalate. Beyond documentation, study the environment with the detachment of an analyst who actually holds influence. Which behaviors are rewarded? What patterns trigger conflict? In toxic systems, understanding incentives often matters more than understanding intentions. Quiet allies are equally important. They are rarely the loudest people in the room. They are the observant ones, the competent ones, the ones who have learned how to survive without losing themselves. Those relationships can provide perspective, validation, and occasionally, opportunity. There is also a mathematical reality to toxic workplaces that many people overlook. Consider the hidden costs. If a toxic environment reduces your productivity by just 20%, drains an additional 10 hours of emotional recovery each week, and increases your likelihood of burnout, the financial impact compounds rapidly. Lost focus affects performance. Performance affects advancement. Chronic stress affects health. Health affects every future decision. A salary is never just a salary. It is compensation minus hidden costs. Sometimes a job paying 10% more is actually paying far less when psychological wear and lost opportunity are factored in. Understanding this transforms the decision from an emotional struggle into an economic calculation. The third layer is conscious decision-making. Toxicity becomes most dangerous when it creates the illusion of entrapment. Human beings can endure difficult circumstances far better than uncertain ones. The antidote is agency. Decide whether you are staying temporarily or preparing to leave, but decide deliberately. Define your red lines with precision. What behavior will you no longer tolerate? What event would trigger an immediate exit? Writing these down converts ambient anxiety into concrete thresholds. If you choose to build an exit, do so quietly and methodically. Update your CV. Reconnect with former colleagues. Expand your network before you need it. Search from a position of control, not desperation. And if the situation crosses legal or ethical boundaries, harassment, discrimination, retaliation, documentation becomes more than useful. It becomes essential. HR may help, though often its primary loyalty is institutional. External legal advice can provide a clearer picture of your options. The final layer is rebuilding, because leaving a toxic workplace does not instantly erase its effects. Many people are surprised by this. They expect relief to arrive immediately, and while it often does, recovery tends to lag behind departure. Toxic systems train adaptations that remain useful nowhere else. Hypervigilance, over-explaining, reluctance to speak openly, assuming criticism before it arrives. These behaviors were once protective. In healthier environments, they can become obstacles. Recovery is less about forgetting and more about recalibration. It may involve therapy, mentorship, trusted friendships, or simply enough time in a stable environment for your nervous system to remember what normal feels like. Ultimately, navigating a toxic workplace is not about winning some moral contest or proving your endurance. It is about preserving your mind, your reputation, your optionality, and your future. Some environments are worth improving. Others are simply worth surviving until you can leave them behind. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference, and the courage lies in acting on it. If there is one thing to remember, it is that toxic workplaces thrive when people forget they have choices. Protect yourself first, navigate with strategy, decide with clarity, and rebuild with intention. No job should cost you your identity, your peace, or your sense of self. Work is something you do, not something you are, and the moment you understand that distinction, you regain more power than any difficult manager or unhealthy culture can ever take away. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing for more thoughtful insights on work, psychology, and personal growth. Share this video with someone who may need to hear it. And if you've experienced a toxic workplace yourself, your story might help someone else realize they are not alone.